Okay, so let's look at dependency injection, and specifically we're going to look at constructor injection. So we're going to start a new project, of course. Say File, New, Project, okay, Console App, click OK. And this is where we're going to work. Okay, so dependency injection is very common to use an interface. You can also use things like a delegate, but the reason you use an interface is because you might want to do unit testing later, and interfaces really support unit testing. And you'll also see later that interfaces are also very good for extending an existing function and extending it without having to change the original function. Okay, so let's add our interface. So I'm going to put it on, above the class. This is the default name when the console application is made. So we're going to do public interface. Okay, and we'll call it myText. And in there, we're going to do a void, which will return nothing, and we'll call it print myText. And this will give us the basic structure of the interface for the program. Okay. Okay, so next we're going to make the class and the function that's going to be injected. So we're going to say class. I'm going to call it myCodeToSend because this is the code that we're actually going to be sending over. This is going to be the injected code, and I'll call it. Actually, what we're going to do next is we're going to use the interface and bring the interface into there. Okay, and inside. Now we have to actually implement this interface. So if we double click it and then click here, we're going to click Implement Interface. Okay, and then inside there we're going to put a console write line. Okay. So that's it. This is the code that's going to be injected. Okay, so next we're going to make the class that will receive the injection. So we're going to do a public class, and we're going to call it myClassToGetCode, because this shows that this is the class that's going to contain the the constructor, and it's going to receive the code that's going to be sent in. Okay, so next we're going to add the constructor, and of course we do that by giving the same name as the class name, and that lets us know that it's a constructor, and of course that lets the compiler know that it's a constructor too. So we're calling it myClassToGetCode, and that makes it a constructor that will actually run when this is actually called. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to send in the interface here. Okay, so we're actually going to send in, specify that this is an interface. So there's our constructor, and we're going to actually take what comes in and store it privately. So we have this myText equals the inText. So this that's being sent in, that's specified as an interface. So let's actually copy it into a private variable. or actually a private interface. So let's do that. Okay, so this is saying that when this comes in, and it's going to be an interface, specifically this guy is coming in, and then we're going to save it privately into this. So next we're going to make the function that will actually do the work and will actually get injected over. Okay, so we're going to add that, and that will be a public void. And just to show that it's getting injected over, I'm going to call it print my new stuff. Okay, and you'll see when we trace this, you'll get a better idea of what's going on. I know that it seems confusing, and it kind of is, but this is it. This is all that we have to do. We're not going to do much more than this, and pretty much you're there. So you have dependency injection going on in a constructor. Okay, so this is where we're going to actually call the class up above, and we'll go through it, we'll trace it, and we'll get a much better idea of what's going on, and then we'll see the power that it gives us. And so the complexity that we have here, which is really not a lot, but the complexity that we have here, we'll see that it's actually worth it. So now what we're going to do here, since this guy is going to get injected over, this is the guy that we're going to bring in. See? So we're going to match that, and we're going to bring that in, and it's going to come in through here, and we're going to go over that. So even though right now it seems confusing, we're pretty much done. And we're going to go through it, we're going to trace it, and then it'll become much clearer what this is actually doing. And so that's the good news. So we're done coding it. Okay? And so let's go, and we're going to call it from the main. So that's it. That's pretty much the whole thing for the purpose of this demo. So we're going to instantiate it. Okay, so we're going to make a new one of these. I'm going to say equals new. And I'll call it, let's see, CX, or we'll call it C object. Okay, equals new. So we're actually copying this into an object. Okay, that's getting copied into an object from the main. Okay, so now we have to make this match. So it doesn't really match yet, okay, because the constructor is expecting this to be sent in, and we're not sending anything in. So let's actually do that. And here's where the injection starts happening. Okay, so we're going to say new, and we're going to say my code to send. Okay, so this is where the injection actually starts. So we're copying this. This is our constructor class. Our class with a constructor, okay, and we're copying this into the object. So we're making an object. At the same time we're doing that, we're actually sending in this function. So this function is getting sent in, and the entire function is getting sent in. So we're actually sending this, and so this is what we're going to send in, and that's the start of the injection. That's the injection itself. Okay, so now that we have it as an object, and we're actually sending in that code, let's actually call that function that we have inside the class with the constructor. So I'm going to reference it, the print my new stuff. Okay, so we take a look here, and we go to that class, and there's the print my new stuff. So pretty much we're just going to send the code into here, and we're going to call this, and then when that comes in, that's going to take this that we're sending in, the code we're sending in, is going to go into this private variable, and then it's going to inject over this. And that's it. We're actually done coding. So we can actually run it now and analyze it. And I know, again, it seems a little confusing, but you're going to see the confusion gives you great benefit. So let's look at that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a console.read key so that when this runs, we can actually see the result and keep the console window open. Okay, so let's just give this a run and see what we get. Okay, there's this is my text. And this is my text comes from here. Okay, so let's clean it up and take a look at it. Okay, so there's our interface. And this is the code that we're injecting. Okay, and this is the class that's inside its constructor is receiving the injection. So I'm just going to tidy it up a little bit so we can actually take a better look at it. Okay. And then let's trace this and find out what it's actually doing. Okay. So we start there. We're going to step into, and we see we come in here. And if we take a look what we've sent in, because we're sending in the actual function, we'll see that when we do this, here's what gets sent in. So here's what gets sent in is the actual function itself. My code to send is actually coming in. See? So we're actually sending in that code. So we're sending code into another function. So let's continue on. And this is where we set it to this. Okay. We set it into that right there. And then we print it. So now what prints is actually this. We're actually printing this. Okay, now next let's take a look at the power. Let's look at the power of what we can do with this. So the idea behind this is that we have this class here, and we might not want to change this class. This is, if we have to change this class, when we add something new to it, then it's tightly coupled. So we want to change the behavior of this class without changing this code. So the way we do that is we're going to actually make another class to send in, another function to send in. Okay, so I just copied that right there, and we'll call it my text. This is my text 2, and I'll rename this my text 2. Okay, actually we leave this as my text. We only rename the class. Okay. So we've made another class to inject, okay? And so we're going to inject this line now, and you'll see, so I call this 2, and so what we'll do is we'll come down here, and we'll call it 2 as well. So we'll say, we'll reference 2, okay? Now when we run it, you'll see that we've changed the behavior of that class. Of the class that contains the constructor, we've actually changed the behavior of this without having to go in here and modify the code. So now you could do this 100 times and have 100 changes come in without having to change the core code. So that's dependency injection, a very basic introduction of it, and I hope that helps you.